Hell. Hell on earth. Oh, it's a... You can tell it's not going to be a good video when I can't even say the word hello. Shall we try again? I ain't going to stop. Right, so hello and welcome to this video. And on this video I'm going to ask the question, should Rush ever reform? Why am I asking this question? Because on Facebook and various other places on the internet I've seen posts popping up here and there sort of alluding to the fact that Alex Lifeson and Geddy Lee, the surviving members of Rush, are open to the fact of getting back together. You know, that they've been talking to each other, they've played together. Now, of course, last year they did get back together because they performed at the Taylor Hawkins tribute gig. And it was a magical thing. I've actually done a video on my channel about it. I found it was so magical. And to, you know, really condense what I said in that video, what I found so magical about it was that Rush are this huge band. They've been around since 1973. They're like a stadium level rock band. They're in the pantheon of great rock bands. But throughout their history, most of the time, cool people and the music critics and all that lot hated them, right? They were loved by nerdy, lonely boys, okay? Intelligent boys that are interested in philosophy, they were interested in technical ability, they were interested in extravagance, they were interested in being taken on a journey of fantasy, all those sorts of things. And I was one of those boys, you know, and I loved them. And I did not care whether the world didn't like them. I didn't care whether, you know, Geddy Lee sounded like Donald Duck on helium. I just didn't care, right? They were my band and I loved them. You know, and I became a champion for them, and it was like Rush against the world. And when you started to, you know, read into the story of Rush, it was a great story because Rush had come out of sort of the hard rock scene of the early 70s. You know, they were playing in the sort of shadows of The Who, of Cream and Led Zeppelin. And on the first album, which is a great album, that's what they do. There's some moments on there where you can hear the Rush sound. You can hear there's incredible moments on the first album, and I always loved the first album along with all the others. But when Neil Peart comes in on the second album and replaces John Rutsey, Neil Peart brings something to the band. Now, the first thing he brings to the band was a virtuosity not seen in hard rock before. A technical ability. He wasn't a blues basher. This guy was into like on time signatures and complexity and incredible rolls. He had a certain sound. It was very precise, and in bringing that, it enabled Rush to amp up the musicality of the band, which is really incredible. But he also brought in the lyrics. He brought in what the band was about. And suddenly it moved into this area of science fiction and fantasy and then philosophy and all sorts of things. And as a young boy, you know, listening to Rush, it opened you up to all sorts of things. I can remember listening to Free Will by Rush and, you know, this idea of whether we live in a determined universe and we have no free will or we have a free will. That philosophical concept came to me from Rush. I'm that type of a guy, you know. Of course, we live in a determined universe and we don't have a free will. But that's another video, isn't it? So, when Neil Peart got ill, it was a point where they'd done their last album called Clockwork Angels. Now, I've also done this channel that, you know, Rush get called a progressive rock band. Well, they're not a progressive rock band on the first album, but the second album, Caress of Steel, they are. Fly By Night, so that's, sorry Rush fans, the second album, Fly By Night, which was a slip of the tongue. Third album, Caress of Steel, the great 2112, you know, or they're progressive rock albums. But as the 80s move in, they take that sound and they mould it into something else. But there's a return to progressive rockisms on the last album, Clockwork Angels. And for an old Rush fan like me that really stopped listening to them after Grace Under Pressure, maybe Power Windows, somewhere around there I lost interest. It was a return to form, and it is a really great album. And so, when Neil Peart gets ill, they have got that album out. It's a fantastic album. It's a great way to end that band. They go out on tour and they do that final tour, they document it, and then they go off into retirement, and a few years later Neil Peart really sadly dies, shocking the whole world, because what it did is it just put a big line through Rush. Rush were done, and you could sit back and go, my God, they didn't put a foot wrong, did they? They didn't put a foot wrong, because we all know the story of Rush. Neil Peart comes in and they start writing songs like Bytor and the Snow Dog and the Necromancer, and nobody likes it. They're just this weird, what are they, hard rock? Are they prog? And they got this, guy with a strange voice singing. What's this? And they embark on what became known as the Down the Tubes tour. Nobody liked them. They weren't getting anywhere. Now, because they are and represent that nerdy, loner, basically what's now would be called an incel. I've always said this, that Rush are the band of the incel, aren't they? So when I say these things, these are little jokes. You don't have to get all wound up by them. I'm just having a joke. You might not find it funny, but I wish I hadn't said it now. I wish I hadn't said it. I've said it on other videos anyway. So Rush hold their ground. They don't care. They will go down playing these album long sides based upon the sort of right-wing politics of Ayn Rand. They're going to die on that hill. And just when you think it should be over and they release the most proggiest album they've ever done, 2112, it becomes huge. And we're talking really huge. And by the time they get to the late 70s, running through Farewell to Kings, Hemispheres, Permanent Waves, Moving Pictures, Signals. These for me are some of the greatest albums ever made. That is a sublime period of music for me. And by the time they get to that, they arrive at Moving Pictures, which sells how many millions of copies. They are a stadium level band. They have established themselves, despite the fact, that the intelligentsia and all the clever people out there don't like them. Right? They have established themselves. They kept going. It was like they had a power, and right at their peak, after Moving Pictures, I can remember waiting for the next album to come out, and it was Signals. And Signals was a change in sound, but I did really love Signals. It wasn't as good as Moving Pictures, but I did really love it. But when the subdivisions opened up, they'd actually written a song for us. And you watch that video and you go, that's me, that's me. So my connection to Rush is far more than just they were a band that could play some tricky stuff and clever stuff. And in doing that, it took sort of, heavy metal Andy, new wave of British heavy metal Andy at the age of 12. Then you discover Rush, think, oh my God, I've got to learn Camera Eye now. And you're trying to learn that, and that pushes up your technique. And I've always said this is the thing with Rush. Rush is the gateway for musicians. They really are. And that's a hard thing to do, to grab a 12 or 13-year-old musician and go, yeah, do you like this? Yeah, I really like it. Yeah, but it's tricky, isn't it? Yeah, it is tricky. I want to learn that. I'm not interested in learning Bach, and I don't want to learn any jazz, but I'll learn a Rush song. And that enables you to get better technically, but also, as I said, Rush opened the world up to me of philosophy and politics and the imagination of fantasy. So if you look at this channel, and this is why this video is going to go on Philosophy Sunday. This is why it's going to have that position. If you look at this channel, I fundamentally come down to a concept that is overriding, and I promised on this video, I thought you cannot talk about this concept because you always do, but it's the idea of the Apollonian and the Dionysian. It's the idea of chaos and order and how art brings those together, and the art is the sort of finishes up that triangle, that law of three, if you wish. Now, where did I get that idea from? Because it wasn't from Greek philosophers, it wasn't from anything clever, it was from me trying to work out why that spaceship had flown into a black hole, right, on Hemispheres. I bought Farewell to Kings, because these albums came out a little bit before my time, so I bought Farewell to Kings. It was incredible. When I heard that album, that was it, because I was a big prog fan by then. When I heard Farewell to Kings, I was like, oh my God, Xanadu and all that. And then at the end of the album was Cygnus X1, and Cygnus X1 was like prog, but it was almost like punk prog. It had a dirtiness that was unlike the rest of Farewell to Kings, which was all sort of fairy-like and woodlandy, and that, you know, it's that sort of English aesthetic, you know, out in Rockfield, you know, on the borders of Wales and England, you know, with the birds singing and all that bit, you know, sort of the pastoral madrigal sort of sound of Farewell to Kings, and then Singer Sex One suddenly opens the door to somewhere else, and I thought, oh my God! And then when I bought Hemispheres, there was part two. I mean, this is incredible. Oh my God, there's part two on this album, and it's a side long. And in listening to that, that is where I begin thinking about these two things and how they can be joined together. You know, and the idea of them being joined together inside a black hole, a singularity. At the singularity brings these two opposing forces together. It's fascinating stuff. It's heavy stuff. It's intellectual stuff. And of course, the rock and roll world hates the intellectual. You've got to remember that the history of rock and roll has been written by middle-class, educated English graduates that wanted to prove how cool they were by being able to champion this thing which was like authentic and real, right? And the people didn't know what it is, but the intelligentsia, they could recognise a visceral talent. Now, there's an element of truth in that, because that is an aspect of rock and roll. Rock and roll is a popular music form, but it's sublime because it can transmit and communicate very intense ideas and emotions at the level of high art. And one of the reasons it does that is because in the 1960s it opens itself up to other music forms made by minorities, and those minorities have no place to express themselves but through whatever it is, the blues or whatever it is. And so in grabbing that and then bringing it in, they suddenly found ways to talk about all sorts of things that hadn't been spoken about before in the arts and in music. Things like sex, things like drugs, things like depression, things like love, things like hate, you know, things like sticking it to the man, you know, things like all these things, right? And so that is there. And as the music critics come along, you know, the good ones notice it, and they have to point the finger and say, you see this here, this might seem like some just dodgy song by some reprobate druggie, but if you listen to it and you analyse it through my intelligent eyes, I could see a very, you know, sublime truth that's in there. And Rush don't fit into that. They're too clever themselves. You know, Neil Peart could have run rings around most music critics, couldn't he? And they didn't like it. And also, they won't be told what to do. And also, their fan base isn't cool. And also, their fan base don't care. All right? Now, why am I going into such detail about this? Because for me, a lot of this hinges round Neil Peart. Because Rush have in the band not only this incredible virtuosity that's spread out. So, you know, Neil Peart's he's like a scientist, and he's concocted all these strange time signatures and strange rhythms, and he's also coming up with all these strange concepts. And Neil Peart's also shy and aloof and withdrawn. That's he occupies that type of personality. And Alex Lifeson is almost the opposite. Now, in terms of, you know, their theoretical knowledge and musical ability, Alex Lifeson, because I watched an interview with Geddy Lee recently, and he said, you know, of all of us, the one who knew the most about theory was Alex Lifeson. You know, Neil Peart couldn't read music, Geddy Lee could just about read music, but Alex can read music. But so Alex was obviously bringing a sort of theoretical and musical and harmonic aspect to the band, but also Alex is gregarious and he's funny. Right, there's a humour to Rush, right, and then Geddy Lee sort of, he's almost like, to me, Geddy Lee's like a Renaissance man. He is brilliant at all these things, singing, a songwriter, as a bass player, as a keyboardist. When I saw Rush live, which was probably about 15 years ago, I couldn't believe what Geddy was doing. It was like an octopus. He was doing all these things at once, you know. And he actually sort of seems to sit somewhere between these opposing forces. And because he's the lead singer, he is that affirming force that brings these two hemispheres together. See, I said I wasn't going to talk about it, and I am. And I think that's a magical thing. That's what makes bands. That's what makes bands. So, I could keep talking like this, but my point is, if you take one of those elements away, i.e. Neil Peart, is it Rush? And I would say no. In the same way as if if you could bring back the members of Cream, but only 2 of them, would that be Cream? No. And the reason I say that because Cream is a trio. If you've got a band with 6 members in and you replace one of those, or you've had a history of replacing members throughout the band, that's a different thing. But for bands that are trios that stay together, I mean, it's like if Stuart Copeland and Andy Summers get back together and did a world tour with someone else singing, it just wouldn't be the Police. And I think in Rush's case, it wouldn't be Rush. Now, on the flip side, would I like to see Alex Lifeson and Geddy Lee get back together? Oh God, yes. And would I like to hear one more album by them? Oh, I'd love that. And would I like them to go out live and play the old Rush songs like they did at the Taylor Hawkins gig? Of course I would. So when my rational brain is rationally, I can analyse it. Go, this isn't Rush, is it? It's just not Rush. There's certain bands where the members are more important than other bands, and I talk as someone who joined IQ, a progressive rock band, very similar to Rush in many ways, and had to replace the legendary Cookie, Paul Cook on drums. But I think the band was bigger. But there was an issue there, and of course, going around playing for Robert Plant, and that's not even Led Zeppelin, but as soon as you step into that place, the comparisons come to John Bonham. I think Neil Peart, in terms of Rush, he occupies a space even bigger, I would say, than Bonham, and Bonham was irreplaceable, but if you've got his son Jason Bonham, you could just about get away with it and call that Led Zeppelin. But I think in Rush's case, you just can't. I think this is the point of this video, is to get that across, but I want it to happen. Now, why do I want it to happen? Well, I want to get into this on this video. This is going to be quite a philosophical video. But before we get to that, those of you who don't want to know all about that, let's talk about the options, right? Because I know that's what people are tuned into, and I do babble on, and we're into 17 minutes into this video, and I haven't got to the juicy stuff. So, should they get back together? No. Would I like them to get back together? Yes. Do we all want to see them get back together? Yes, we do. We know it's a bad idea, but we want it to happen. So the next question is, who would do it? Well, it's Mike Portnoy, isn't it? Mike Portnoy. It's got to be Mike Portnoy. Because Mike Portnoy occupies the same sort of gravitas in that rock world as Neil Peart. He's a progressive rock drummer, he's a virtuoso, and he has this massive personality. But the problem with Mike, and I don't think it would work, sorry Mike if you watch him, I mean, Mike's the biggest Rush fan on the planet. He'll know everything, he'll be ready to go. He's got the huge drum kit, he's got the charisma. But for me, Mike is charismatic in the absolute opposite way to Neil Peart. Neil had a charisma that was quiet and focused, whereas Mike hasn't. Mike's got this sort of, it's beaming out this sort of ebullient extrovert personality. I just don't know whether it would just seem strange to have somebody at the back occupying that sort of energy in Rush. Okay, so Mike's the obvious choice, but I'm not too sure whether it would work. So do you get sort of some sort of a faceless session musician that could just do the job? In a way, that might be a better option, because then you go to the gig, someone's doing a good job in the background, and on the Taylor Hawkins gig, they had a number of drummers coming in one after the other, so that focus was all going out. When you watched it, it was like, oh, they're playing it now, and they're playing it now. Oh, that's interesting. And that stops you from going, oh, so this is Rush, is it? And that's the drummer. But you could have some faceless guy in the background that can play everything that you've never heard of, right? I think that one might be a better option. they could go down the route of turning that into the campaign. They could say, like Dream Theatre did when Mike left. They could put a TV show together, and they could go out to the general public and find the perfect guy. And what you would get would be, in the end, you would either have the sort of tribute band clone, and Neil Peart wasn't a tribute band clone. And if you want the spirit of Neil, you need to get someone who's got an individuality that brings that aspect into the band. And so it'd have to be somebody completely different. Well, go and get somebody completely different. Go and get Meg White if she's up for coming out the house, because she doesn't like to get out of the house, does she? But let's get Meg White on drums. Now, I know artistically that could be really, really interesting. And what that would do is that would put Rush into a completely new sound and a new thing, and it would be new creative. And the Meg White example's probably a little bit extreme. But imagine just bringing somebody else in that just is different, that just brings new life to the band and inspires them to do something else. And as I'm saying all this, artistically and creatively, I know that's the right thing. Again, the rational side is going, yeah, that's the right thing, but I don't want that to happen. I want Mike Portnoy on drums. I want to see Mike on, he's the big prog drummer. I want Mike. What about Bill Bruford? Bill Bruford I would imagine was a hero of Neil Peart. That's almost like getting an upgrade, isn't it, if you get Bill Bruford? But he won't do it because he's in retirement. So who else who could do it? Who could do it out there that's around? Well, who would do an incredible job? Well, for me, a drummer that has the beauty and sort of touch in a way even beyond Neil would be Simon Phillips. Simon's got the big kit. He can play everything from jazz through to metal. My choice is you go and get Simon Phillips. And Simon Phillips will do the job, because Simon Phillips can do anything. All right? And to hear Simon's beautiful drumming and that his way of playing those panoramic fills around the toms, it would just be a joy to behold. It really would. So my vote goes with Simon Phillips. Now, I had no idea what I was going to say when I started this video, but I think that is it. But we can start going through all the drummers. It's fun to think of drummers that could, step in. What about Matt Garstka from Animals as Leaders? What about one of these new guys? These incredible technical guys with all the with their feet and like that and all that. There's billions of those out there now, But there again, it's like Alex and Geddy. They're like, they're 70 years old. Is it going to be a good look than playing blast beats, or would it just be somebody doing an impersonation of Neil Peart because they're not actually in the zone of what they normally do? All right, there is a billion drummers out there, because of guys like Neil Peart. He elevated the level of drumming up. He was the guy that did it. Right, and because of that, his legacy is now, if you go out there and, now years of meme videos about YYZ, is that you've got little kids of like 7 years old learning YYZ now. So the level is there, we could go and get anybody, or we could get nobody. So for me, this is a question of the head and the heart. The head says no, the heart says yes. So I would like to explore why that is. And you know what I think it is? I think it's got to do with death. That's what I think. Now, when I got up this morning, I thought I want to do a philosophy video, and my family's lost quite a close family member last week. So death is something that's in my mind. And originally I was going to do a video about death songs, because death songs is a genre. It's a genre. There's so many songs. Think of The Bridge by Dolly Parton. I mean, that's the ultimate death song, or Don't Fear the Reaper. There's billions of them. Death hangs over rock and roll. But then when I got to thinking about why do I want Rush to get back together, and the reason is, and this came to me this morning because I was having a chat this morning with a couple of mates of mine. We were chatting about guitarists that sort of that we first listened to. We were chatting originally about Gary Moore, and then I said, well, really important guitarist for me when I was coming up was John Sykes in Tigers of the Pantang. I used to love Tigers of the Pantang. And so I went onto YouTube and I started to watch some Tigers of Pantang video, and I came across a video that I must have seen around about 1981. They were on some TV show. And as I saw it, I had a feeling inside me, because music has this way of being able to, it's like smells, isn't it? It can just grab you and take you back to a certain time. And this is an aspect of music that I never discuss on this channel. We talk about all sorts of different things. But for most of us watching this now, the reason we have such an allegiance and love of this music is because I think there's an aspect of it that grabs us and takes us back. And with Rush, it's so specific because they represent 14-year-old Andy. You know, so not only does the music and you know, so if I put on Hemispheres now, I wish I could grab it out there. I ain't got a clue if everything is there. I want to hold a Rush album. I want to hold a Rush album as I talk. The first Rush album that I find, I will pull out of my collection. Come on, Rush albums, where are you? I might have to do an edit. Well, I found one. It's not the one I wanted. Actually, this one's a good one. Actually, oh, old man trying to find Rush albums that he bought when he was a teenager. I didn't actually buy this one. My mum bought me this one, and this here, as I open it, and I see that gatefold. This is called Archives, and it was the record company boxed up into this double album or triple album, the first 3 albums, right? I never owned those first 3 albums. I had this instead. That's where I knew it. And as I open this up and it's falling apart, I could see, look at this. This is what I mean. This was the best one to pick. You see, this is the weird thing about my videos, is that there's things in there that I could never have thought of, planned. But look at this. That there, I've done a pencil drawing of Alex Lifeson on the sleeve of the record. I've sat there listening to Bite All the Snow Dog, penciling away, trying to do a drawing of Alex Lifeson, right? And I've signed it at the bottom. This is proper teenage. I've signed it like Alex Lifeson has signed it. And then I've got some Letraset. Letraset doesn't exist anymore. I've gone and got some Letraset. See? And I have got one of the very popular prog typefaces, which is that sort of old English one. And I have put Fly By Night on here. And typical of me, I bet you, my plan was I've got 3 albums and I've got 3 members. I'm going to do a drawing on each of the ones. Let's see if I did a drawing on the others. I bet I did it. I would have given up on this. No, they just, oh! I've got a little bit of a Letraset there for Rush. I've done it there, and then, oh, I've got one for there as well. So I had intention, you know, why did I do that? It's because these were so important to me, and I poured over them. Oh, and when I pull this album out, it's full of history for me, and I'm sure your Rush albums are full of history for you. This album is literally 40 years old, right? This album has been with me in all the houses I've lived in, all the places I've gone to, right? This has been carried around. I've lost everything else, but that lot there, I've held on to. And I tell you, there was a number of years where I thought, shall I just dump it? When I was buying CDs and the internet came out, and you know, I thought, what shall I do with these? And I know people who did do that, but I held on to these. I held on to these records because they were really important. I'm glad I did that big search now. I am glad I did that big search. You know, I'd have lost a few viewers at that. I think there's enough people that are grumpy enough to go, I'm not wishing some bloody bloke just look through his record collection and not be able to find anything because he's can't be asked to put it in alphabetical order like mine. Because we're all grumpy old men now, aren't we? We're grumpy old men. And when you become a grumpy old man, I'm 55 years old. So when you get to 55, right, I think there's a little bit of a crisis from when you get to your 50s. Because I think when you get to your 50s, things start to emerge. for start, your health. If there's going to be any health problems, they're going to emerge when you're 50 years old, right? And for many people, they can often run into something that's quite serious. And of course, when you start getting ill at 55, you're then thinking, my God, how long have I got? When I was listening to those albums, I had the whole world in front of me. I had my whole future in front of me. But now I've done what I've done. And actually, over the last few years, I've come to terms with the fact that I've done what I've done. Now, that may be the fact that in my sort of middle-age years, I've now ended up doing this, YouTube. And my sort of creative outlet is actually YouTube now. I've always had a concept about art and music that you need to access the subconscious. I've always had that, and it really comes back to listening to bands like Rush. Now, Rush are the complete opposite of that. Rush have got nothing to do with accessing the subconscious. Their music is absolutely thought out beforehand. It's all about putting your footsteps in the right place. Neil Peart, when he went on stage, didn't have Alex and Geddy really in the monitors, because he learnt his parts and he went and played them. The idea of feeling emotion is something that they were trying to actually bring down. It's an intellectual exercise with Rush. There is emotion there, there's feel there, but there's a certain aspect to it. It's really odd that I started with Rush and I had that sort of artistic outlook, and that is an artistic outlook that actually exists within progressive rock that I don't really like. I like to access the unconscious, and in doing that, this is now my creative outlet. And the fact that I couldn't find that record, and then I did find it, and then the sort of delight of realising there was a forgotten pencil drawing inside it. And then you start to see weird coincidences. A few weeks ago, and I don't know who this person is, they sent me a pencil drawing of my dog, and I need to contact them. And I will. I'm going to do it now, because I actually thought, well, let's just put the pencil drawing in the back, because that will represent something. And what does it represent? Well, it's my dog Mojo, but he is dressed as Sherlock Holmes, right? I will show you this. There he is, my dog Mojo. Someone's done a pencil drawing. They've sent that to me. Look, you'll think, what has this got to do? I'll tell you who it is. I'll give him a shout out, because I've got this here. It is the incredible Steve Smallman and his pencil pet portraits. And he signed it on the back, Sherlock Bones. Now, what has this got to do? Because Sherlock Holmes, he has to work things out, he has to search for things, and that was what I was just doing. Don't you think that's strange? I met up a good friend of mine the other day, and they gave me a present of this album here, Ulver. And Ulver are this dark post-progressive rock band, right? That sits in the shadows of a band like Rush. All this stuff is happening around us, right? And that, there's always a secret meaning to something. And this is what, especially Philosophy Sunday videos, I allow myself the luxury of coming in here and letting the video spin out of control, because there's hidden meanings. I don't even think I'm putting them in, and I don't know where they're coming from. Right? And that has been a great joy for me. I've spent my whole life doing music, but this has been an absolute joy. And a part of it is being able to, rather than being the young kid that's trying to play music and listening to Rush and doesn't really know anything, you move from being the Harry Potter to the Dumbledore. Everybody does, and the Dumbledore's got all the answers and all the wisdom, but it's the youth that actually make the change, because they don't know how to do stuff. And as you get older, you have got all this wisdom, you've had all this experience, but you want to try and get back in touch with that thing that you've lost, because you know deep down that you're at the end and not the beginning. And I think the reason why we want Rush to reform, even though one of the guys is now dead and they are in their 70s, is we want to be able to buy the ticket to that concert and walk there, and we hope that we just get that whiff, maybe a little bit more concentrated than that whiff I just got when I pulled that album out and saw that pencil drawing, and got in touch with the mindset of a creative kid who loves Rush. And I'm into drumming and guitar playing, and I'm into writing and stories, and I'm into drawing. I was really into drawing, and so I did that without knowing. I did, you know, the adult me goes, why are you drawing a pencil drawing of Alex Lifeson for? You know, you should be doing something intellectual and creative. Should be, you know, pleasing the intelligentsia. But Rush aren't that. They take me back to being that nerdy, lonely, you know, rock fan who is probably a little bit too clever and intellectual to listen to Kiss and, you know, those types of bands, and wanted something else. That's what they represented. And as time went on, Rush became my friends, and I could see aspects of me in each of their personalities. And I want to see that again. And I know that the chemistry between Geddy Lee and Alex Lifeson will be enough. I want to be able to touch that for an instant. But the problem is, I think, and this is why I'm against these reformations of bands, is if it actually happened, the sort of degradation that would exist in it, and degradation is probably a harsh word, but the sort of tatty pulling together of these whatever elements we've got, you know, it's like the Frankenstein of going, well, we haven't got Neil Peart and we can't really play that and I can't sing in that key, but let's try and just pull what together, try and form it into something. You know, it's like Viagra. That's what it is. "40 minutes. 40 minutes to get to the conclusion that if Rush reform, it is just some sort of metaphorical Viagra for a bunch of guys that want to relive what it was like to be young. They don't really have any interest in what creatively Alex Lifeson and Geddy Lee would do now. Or they'd go for the Meg White option. Yeah, I do these videos to learn myself. It's a really interesting format. The talking head into the camera. It's a really interesting format. I'm all on my own here. Sun's shining. Can you hear the ambulance? Or there's a hospital up the road. We have ambulances go past all the time. That person's in there who does not care about what we're talking about. They're in trouble. They've had an accident or they're very ill. They've called up the hospital and the ambulance is rushing now to try and stop them from dying or being seriously ill or whatever it is. We are a species, unlike any other on the planet, that knows we're going to die and can actually see forward. And death hangs over us. And death's terrifying because we don't know what it is. And what I mean by we don't know what it is, it's unimaginable to us. Death is. It's just unimaginable. And we cannot approach it in any way, but we know that it is looming ever closer. And wouldn't it be nice to be able to go at that Rush concert and transform, like those people in Cocoon, back to being 14 years old and not knowing anything and sitting there trying to work the world out by listening to Rush and reading the lyrics. And isn't it a beautiful thing that that's what Rush represents to millions of people? We can only thank Alex and Geddy and Neil, and I'll even put John Rutsey in there, for pulling that off, being able to do that. And for an old bloke like me to be able to come on and pull all this stuff out of nowhere, because it's not me pulling it. It's circumstance. It's fate. We really don't have a free will. The world is determined. Right? We have the illusion of free will in a determined universe. What was Geddy singing about on free will? Don't know. But I can remember buying permanent waves. I can remember buying it downtown with my dad, and he bought it for me. I can remember then he had to go to a do-it-yourself shop to buy some wood, and I didn't want to go in there, so I sat in the car itching to listen to this album, looking at every inch of that album. You know, Spirit of the Radio, free will, Jacob's Ladder, what's all this about? Free will. And that was the point when I read the lyrics, because it wasn't just a song that mentioned free will. Neil Peart explains the very thing that I have arrived at the end of this video, is the fact that doesn't matter what you do, and I tell you, everything is determined. It's all determined. Right? It's another video, and some people are getting very angry now, especially the Christians, because of course their whole thing is based upon there being a free will. But I don't believe there's a free will. I believe everything is determined. And the ultimate proof of that is the fact that we will all die. And that is terrifying. And every ounce of fear that you have for anything, any fear that you haven't paid the gas bill or whatever it is, that fear is rooted. It's rooted and goes back to the core of death, black nothingness, the void. The void, chaos. Chaos will come and envelope you one day, and you won't be able to do anything about it, and that's terrifying. Right? And that idea is actually in all art. I think it's the fundamental aspects of all art is death. I think that nostalgia is the sentimental con that we could escape that. But the truth is, art enables us to escape that for just a few seconds, because it has an ability, like a smell, you know, the smell of disinfectants in your school toilets, you know, that if you smell that, it will grab you and just pull you back just for a moment, because everything is determined, and we are who we were and who we will be. We are all of those things all at the same time. Now, all those clever punk bands that the critics liked back in the late 70s when Rush were like the most unpopular band in the world, they did some incredible things. But Rush dealt with these concepts in their music. And a lot of that came from the sort of withdrawn, you know, quiet loner that was Neil Peart in the background. Right? If he's not there, it's not Rush. And you know why he's not there? It's because he's dead. Like us all. Someday. Gone. Forgotten. Dust. Returning back to where it once came. Unless there's some great big collective consciousness that is acting through us. Because that could probably be the case. Anyway, I think at 45 minutes of this, I've got to the end of the video. I may edit that thing out when I was looking for the album covers. So if there is a cut there, it's not because I have gone wrong, because you know I like to leave everything in so you know that this just came out of me. Because I don't want you to be impressed by me. I want you to be impressed by the form. I want you to be impressed by the fact that if I, at my age, with all the experiences and things that have happened to me, that's specific to me, if I come here and focus in a sort of meditative way of talking to you like this, talking to you into the camera, and I start talking, I can access something by being at once in touch with my past, but also being in touch with what's around me. And and cover some truth. But you all can do that too. The trouble is, you'll need a camera, and you'll need a few thousand subscribers, and you'll need to go and sit and talk into the camera. And you'll feel shy when you do that. Because that's what happens when you first do it. I'm used to it now. I'm just used to it. So I'll just keep talking. I can keep talking now. I'll just change the subject, go on to something else. I could just look at something and just... Like there's a battery here. Oh, God. There's a battery here, and I've got a microphone over there. I've got a microphone. I've found a PZM pressure zone microphone. It's like a black square, but it needs a battery. Now this battery, I didn't plug it in because I ain't got a battery. Right, and I came in here and, I can't plug it in, battery. I'll go up the shop and buy a battery. I will do that. And then I forgot about it. Because the same way the pencil drawings, I just forget. You know, that's what I'm like. I'm a musician, I'm a drummer. But there was no mindfulness. If I just looked on the floor, there is a battery. God in heaven. Or maybe not. If you like this video, please like. If you want to subscribe and watch more of this nonsense, you can. You just press the subscription button and you'll be subscribed. You can ring the notification bell, or you can do whatever you want. You can write it down in a book. You can get a tattoo. Andy Edwards, YouTuber, right? You can do whatever you want, but if you want to do what you want to do, then you do what you want to do. Of course, it's determined what you do, so I don't even know why I'm telling you to do it, because you're going to do it or not do it. But then you would have been influenced by the fact that I just told you to do it. Right, press that like button. Now your finger's hovering, going, I have got a free will, because I'm at this point can choose. I can press it or not press it. I can press it or not press it. What shall I do? What shall I do? Don't want to do. Andy said to press it. If I press it, it'll prove that I've got no free will. The whole universe is determining that I've got no agency. So what shall I do? I'm not going to press it then. Okay, then don't press it then. Don't press the like button. Don't press it. Don't press it. Oh no, I've got to press it. I don't want to press it. Now, look down below in the links. You could become a patron now. Oh, don't tell me. I don't want to become a patron. I don't want to give Andy money. That's all he's doing it for. He's only doing it to someone, give him money. That's all he's doing. And if you don't want to join Patreon, you could go and put some money in my tip jar. No, that's just free money. That's free money, and he wants me to do it. And if I don't do it, then the world's determined and I have no agency. So yes, I am right. You have to. Right, you've got to press it. It's a double bluff, you see. It's a double bluff. Right? I've asked you to press my PayPal tip jar. The link's down below. You can press it and put some money in now. Go on, do it. Do it. But if you do it, it means I've made you do it, and it proves that everything you do does not come from within, it comes from without. And the reason why I'm saying this is because I've had thoughts, and they're based upon all these other events that have happened, and all these events trail back right back to the beginning of the universe, that singularity that we were talking about. You know, that's inside the black hole. It expands out, and everything that was going to happen is encoded in the beginning of the universe. You could track it back, cause and effect, cause and effect, cause and effect. So when I say to you, go to my PayPal tip jar, go there now and press it and give me some money. Right? You're going, he's telling me to do this. If I do it, then I won't be able to prove I've got a free will, so I'm going to choose not to do it. But the problem is, that's what I'm predicting you're doing, isn't it? I'm predicting that. For you to prove that, because you believe in free will, you've got to not press that button now. So you need to press it. The second press is like the first one. It'll prove me wrong. It'll prove me wrong if you do the second press. It will. It's the great binary here. I didn't want to talk about it, but expose it. It doesn't matter how you look at it. It doesn't matter how you chop it or cut it. It's always the great binary. Yes or no. Press or no press. Go on. Give me some money. Don't do it. Go on. Give me some money. Don't do it. Go on. Give me some money. Don't do it. Don't do it. The progressive rock fans here will be very upset to find out that there is absolutely no order to any of this. So I when I do a video and I have to find vinyl, it can sometimes take me an hour to find the vinyl I need. And I found a Gong album. I thought that was a Rush album. I found another Gong album. Oh, why did I even think to do that? I need to hold a Rush album as I do this. I don't know which one it is. I need to feel that thing of holding this album. And these are the albums that I bought. These are the ones that, these are the albums. In Crimson, there's one there, there's not, I want Rush, come on. Oh, my videos, they always have this bloody chaotic bit in them where I try and do something off the cuff. If I'd have known I wanted to hold a Rush album, I could have found a Rush album and I could have positioned it ready to just grab like a normal YouTuber. And now, even though it's stocked full of bloody Rush albums, I can't find one. Come on, Rush, where are you hiding? They're going to think I haven't got any Rush albums in a minute if it carries on like this. This is pathetic. Come on, Rush albums, where are you? Are you still there?